years I heard the stories from him. Tales of pillaging pioneers, sightings of ancient large-footed creatures, and what piqued my ears the most was the mention of buried treasure. The lake, his lake, my lake, is just deep enough in the woods, far enough from the closest city to hide a secret or two. Its reflective surface, whether shimmering and swaying in the summer sun, or militant in the dead of winter, always serves as a protective barrier to its dark soul below. I must admit, I had painted my own picture of the lake from the old man's descriptions. I had fantasized it as a wildly overgrown retreat frequented by raccoons, hippies, and perhaps the occasional Jason Voorhees-like assistant. Nonetheless, I purchased a metal detector should the invitation to visit arise. Oh, how I still remember that day, April 31st. We met for a late breakfast of the most perfect blueberry pancakes. After a few cups of coffee, the old man began his routine, blending bouts of wisdom with his typical outlandish recollections. He narrowed at me and questioned comically, "You know why treasure's no good in heaven, don't you?" Going along with him, I begged to reply, "Well, not really." "Because they use gold to pave the streets." "What a waste. They probably use diamonds for window panes, and the stoplights are made of rubies, topaz, and emeralds." That's why I always say that riches are all around us. You have to truly value them and consume them before they consume you. As he continues to wander the conversation, so did my mind. He mentioned the pier on his lake, and I peered at him. I glanced at the window for an ounce of reality, but a hazy reflection was my only friend. Like an out-of-body experience, I was there in appearance, but so was something else beneath the surface. I was indefinitely held in that matrix until the old man laughed a laugh so deep I could smell the blueberries and the black guttural coffee. How I hated blueberries. My lake, my treasure. At that moment, seized by some poltergeist, I injected that perhaps the time had come that I too might get to see the mystical oasis, the lake. I thought he might be reluctant to share his sacred space with me, but an unfamiliar, joyful look came across his face. He placed a $50 bill on the table and nodded toward his vintage blue 1961 Citroen just outside the diner. From the rear, he grabbed a top hat and placed upon his head. We were off. The old man drove better than I would have guessed. Cutting off the main highway, he rambled from one country lane to the other. The euphoria of open space sparked instant creative cravings in my mind. It was easy to see how the old man conjured his crazy tales. We took one last turn into a small driveway, shouldered with a thick of pines on either side. The old man halted the car by a tall tan house with a well-manicured lawn, complete with ornamental statues and a long boardwalk just outside the vehicle. Shutting off the engine, we sat in silence. We could hear the cardinals calling and drips falling off leaves from an earlier light drizzle. He turned to me. Now he was the one taken by his thoughts. "Well, the path takes us to the lake, and time marches on." We padded onto the squishy lawn and began our stride down the wooden slats. A reverence fell in the cadence of our steps across the sturdy wood. Silently, ceremoniously, we walked down to the pier, surrounded by the holy water. Visually, it looked to be only a few yards away, but the motions of walking down the platform became sedated and deliberate. Somewhere on the journey, I realized that I wasn't approaching a destination. I was meeting a destiny. We sat. We stared. I don't remember a conversation. Just the sounds of the lake lapping against the banks. But in those moments, as I devoted my attention to the surface of this liquid tomb, this wheel of fortune, I suddenly understood. In those moments, the lake whispered his secrets. His buried treasures had become my own.